Hey everybody, thanks for stopping by the channel. My name's Dave, the Vintage Paperback Reader, and today I'd like to share with you my most recent read, and that is City Primeval, High Noon in Detroit by Elmore Leonard, which was originally published in 1980 in hardcover. This is a 1982 Avon edition, January 82 I believe it was, and this is the 10th printing actually of that, so it's been around a while. Definitely not an early copy, but anyway. So, yeah, Elmore Leonard, a little bit of a backstory on the author. He was a Detroit author. Actually, he was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, moved to Detroit when he was 8 or 9, something like that. But in the 50s, he started writing Westerns, which eventually, in 1969, I believe, with the big bounce, he moved into crime fiction. Now, for me, being born and raised in Detroit and a reader, Elmore Leonard has always been an author that I feel that I should know better than I do. A few years back, I read Freaky Deaky, and which coincidentally just this past weekend at Thrift Shop, I picked up a first edition hardcover, which is pretty nice. I mean, the jacket's a little foxy, but nonetheless, the pages are just absolutely beautiful. Anyway, so as far as that tangent goes, so yeah, from that point on, I made a point of wanting to add more of Leonard's works into my TBR. And you know how we are when it comes to TBRs. You know, something else always has higher priority, more interest, whatever. So I never actually got back to Leonard's bibliography until now. One thing also to note about his crime fiction in particular, while there are very few that are actually sequels to one another, he does have a knack for linking a lot of the characters together and a lot of the events together. And so it's best to start at the beginning and work your way chronologically in publishing order, which I, of course, didn't do. City Primeval, I think, was his 17th novel. Just happened to be the one I came across first, but now I'm going to have to make a concerted effort to roll back to the big bounce. Anyway, so that's kind of where this project is at. I've got a separate Elmore Leonard TBR that I'm going to be working against, and we'll see how that goes. Hopefully I can get through most of them. The Westerns, maybe not so much right away. I'm not a huge fan of Westerns, or much of a fan of Westerns at all, but definitely going to work through his crime fiction. So as far as what City Primeval is about, it's a lot of it is stereotypical crime fiction. We have Raymond Cruz, who is a new homicide lieutenant who gets kind of a case thrown in his lap, which is the murder, kind of a double murder, not kind of, it was a double murder of a shady judge, Detroit judge, and his mistress. We know right away who the killer is. It's not a murder mystery by any stretch of the imagination. We know that Clement Mansell, who is a kind of a loose cannon sort of psychopath from Oklahoma, who's kind of just drifting through, been around Detroit for a while. There are allusions to Cruz having crossed paths with him before, and probably in previous novels that I haven't read yet. But the majority of the story focuses on the cat and mouse game that Cruz plays with Mansell. And there are a lot of references to Westerns. Gregory Peck, the actual film High Noon. And there are a lot of similarities in terms of kind of the dueling, if you will, in the middle of the street at high noon. Hence, High Noon in Detroit. It's not completely tropey like that, but there's a lot of it. Anyway, so if you like a Western, but you're not sure about crime fiction, this might be one to start with. You'll recognize a lot of elements. But I felt it was, it was good. As Freaky Deaky, I thought was good. It's not great, didn't blow me away, but it was interesting. So yeah, I kind of I don't think this is a good entry point. Just like I said from before, there's a lot of tie-ins. You probably want to start with the big bounce, which is what I'm going to do next in as far as this TBR goes. Not the next book I'm going to read, but the next one in the list I'm going to go after. There are a lot of elements that are of the times. There's a lot of sexism, a lot of racism, but it's on both sides of the spectrum. So it's not just one party having this attitude towards another. The stereotypes are across the board in both directions. That's not an excuse for it by any means, but just be aware that it's there. It's not really sleazy. That's one thing about Elmore, at least what I've read so far. He makes, you know, some allusions to things and insinuations, but there's nothing really graphic, especially in this novel. There's nothing graphic. But yeah, I thought it was overall a good book. You know, 3 out of 5. I enjoyed it. He's definitely got a unique writing style. I'm not a huge fan of crime fiction just because of I should say, I enjoy crime fiction. It's the detective novel that I don't particularly enjoy. A lot of that happens to be that whole first-person narrative, which is just not my bag. But this is not, of course. This is narrated kind of standard third-person. So yeah, if you're looking for a quick read, this isn't bad. If you're familiar with Leonard at all, this will be very familiar territory for you. If you want to pick this up and start, you could, definitely. But I would, like I said, recommend starting at the beginning chronologically. So, all right. That's kind of all my thoughts. I didn't want to get into too much to spoil it for you, but look forward to any discussion or any comments you might have in the about this book, whether you've read it, whether what you feel about Elmore Leonard. I mean, you know, even if you haven't read his novels, like me, I haven't read many of his novels, but I've seen the movies. You know, there is The Big Bounce. There's Mr. Majestic. Get Shorty and Be Cool. Jackie Brown. So, I mean, and Justified most recently, I think, is probably his most recent film or at least screen adaptation. So, yeah, let me know what you think about Elmore Leonard. Look forward to hear from you. All right? Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.